Okay, good to see all of you. Looks like we're slowly trickling in over here. Hi, Ezra. Hi, Mordechai, Abraham. Okay, let's see. Oh, David's here. Hi. Okay, so we're going to go through Mitzvah Hashem, some of the Ohr Hachaim's interpretations on Parshas Vayeishev. And so we're going to start where the story of Yosef selling Yosef, Mechiras Yosef, the sale, the selling of Yosef and what they're going to do to him. They have a discussion, the brothers, what they want to do with him. He's on his way. He's looking to see how they are. And before he arrives, they're conspiring against him. Lahamisoi, to kill him. And this is in chapter 37, verse 18. And we're going to do, Mitzvah Hashem, a few of these psukim, a few of the commentaries, even on the next few verses. But basically, the brothers are considering to kill Yosef. And the first plan is they're going to kill him and throw him into one of the pits. And they're going to tell the father that a chaya ra'ah, a wild beast, ate him. And then we'll see what's going to happen to his dreams. Now, Reuven, the oldest brother, hears this, and he saves Yosef, and he says, let's not kill him. Let's instead, Reuven says, don't spill blood, throw him into the pit, and don't do anything. Don't lay any hand on him. Yod al tishluchu boy, don't lay a hand on him. And he did this in order to hopefully save him from their hands and return him to the father. So the brothers want to kill him and throw him into the pit. Reuven wants to just throw him in the pit and then maybe save him afterwards. And when he actually arrives, they throw off his kasainas, the special expensive woolen garment. They throw it off, and they remove it, and they take him and they throw him into the pit. And the pit doesn't have any water, but we understand it has snakes and scorpions. And they sit down to eat, and then it goes. Then they see this caravan of Ishmaelites, and Yehuda then says, let's. What do we gain from killing him and covering his blood? Let's go sell him to the Ishmaelites, and we won't have any involvement. Our hands will not be upon him. He is our brother. He's our flesh. And the brothers listened. And ultimately, that's what happened. They sold him into slavery. So there's this idea of killing him, idea of throwing him into the pit. And then there's the idea of selling. So the Ohr Hachaim, there's a very famous Ohr Hachaim over here that we've mentioned it in the Gemara class when we were learning Chagiga. It's come up before, and it really it opens up a question, and it opens up a discussion about hashkafa, about how we understand Hashem's divine providence and reconciling divine providence with the concept of free will. In other words, can you do something that Hashem didn't have in mind, doesn't want to happen? Can you go against Hashem's plan because you have free will? It's an interesting question in Jewish philosophy, and we're going to get to it. This is a famous Ohr Hachaim. It's discussed. Many people question the Ohr Hachaim, so we're going to soon get up to it. But before we do that, we're going to start at the beginning of the verse. It talks about, now let us go and kill Yosef, is the beginning of verse 20. And Viata, and now. So the Ohr Hachaim mentions, it's interesting that they're in such a rush. Now let's go kill him. And the Ohr Hachaim says it has to do with the fact that they really could not handle. They couldn't handle Joseph. And even before he arrived, they're already they want to just get rid of him as soon as possible. And the Ohr Hachaim deals with a major issue. What is the major issue of this whole story? It's what were the brothers really thinking? All the commentaries grapple with this story. How do you explain the brothers? What were they gonna? Why? How did they think that they're gonna kill Joseph? Well, what was their claim? Did they have any legitimate reason that he deserved death? Did they feel that this was acceptable? I mean, they were religious Jews, very religious, considered to be tzaddikim, righteous, and yet they're going to go and kill someone, not let alone their own brother. So it's something that the commentaries they really struggle to explain. And I've mentioned, I don't remember when, maybe in a previous class about Vayeishev, maybe, but I've mentioned a pshat, and I don't know where I've seen this pshat, but there is a explanation that Joseph would tattletale on his brothers. As we know in the verse, it mentions that. And the brothers were nervous that Joseph is going to cause that his father, Jacob, is going to utter a curse against the brothers. And if Jacob utters a curse against the brothers, it's going to ultimately lead to death for the brothers. And because of that, Joseph is called a roidef, someone who's running after people to kill them. And there's a mitzvah actually to protect oneself. It's called self-defense. And not only for yourself, it's also a mitzvah to save someone who's being chased, to save them from being killed. That's also a negative mitzvah, like samar el damriecha, don't stand while your brother is being murdered. So there's a mitzvah to save someone. So they felt that they have a mitzvah to kill Joseph so that he doesn't cause them all to get killed when the father will be told all of their sins, and the father will utter a curse. They'll ultimately all die. So they felt that Yosef is called a roidef, someone who's chasing someone to kill them, and they felt that they had a legitimate claim that they should kill him first. When someone's coming to kill you, hashkem v'hargoy, lahargoy, you should go first and kill him. So there is such a pshat. I don't know where I've seen this. Maybe some of you have heard this pshat before, but this is a common understanding that I've understood in the past. But the Ohr Hachaim has a slightly different take on it. The Ohr Hachaim deals with two things. One is there is the heavenly judgment, and the other is the earthly judgment. There is doing something right in the eyes of Hashem, or at least not doing something wrong in the eyes of Hashem. And then there's not being able to be punished in the eyes of mankind. So the Ohr Hachaim wants to explain what the brothers were thinking of killing Joseph. How are they going to get out of God's punishment? In other words, in heavens, is that called murder? Godly in God's court, the way God sees it? And on earth, would that be considered murder? They have done something wrong, even in an earthly court. So the Ohr Hachaim says that when two people do something, like two people murder, it actually doesn't carry with it the death penalty. They're exempt from the death penalty in the eyes of man. The Ohr Hachaim brings the Ohr Chaim's statement is based on a Gemara, Asara b'nei Adam, when you have 10 people that they kill someone. So If they kill the person, they're joint killing. So basically, neither of them are, can you say, are punishable by death. We're not going to kill both of them. And so that's how the brothers, that's why the brothers said in the plural, let's go and kill Joseph. They were going to do it in a pluralistic way, in a group murder, so to speak, instead of a individual. But how does that help? The fact is, they're still going to be, in Hashem's eyes, they're still going to be guilty, even though in a human court, maybe you can't punish, but the heavenly court will punish all of them. So what were they thinking? Again, so we've covered one issue of in a court of mankind, of humans, that works. The Ohr Hachaim mentions on the side, he says, and they also, what they were saying was not even a lie. They're going to say, so first of all, they got out of the court of man by more than one person being involved. Then additionally, they want to throw him in a pit. And what will happen? They're going to kill him and throw Joseph in the pit afterwards. So what's going to happen is the animals in the pit will consume him. And what they're going to tell the father is going to be almost like a white lie. It's not exactly. They're going to say that a wild beast ate him. Now, in truth, what really happened? They killed him, and afterwards, a wild animal ate him. But what they're telling the father is the fact that the wild beast ate Joseph. Now, how did he die? We're not telling. Jacob is going to think that the wild beast ate him alive. Really, in truth, they killed him first, and then the wild beast ate him. So that's the way that's the way they're not even saying a outright lie. And they're not mentioning how he died. They're mentioning that the wild beasts ate him. Now, what about the heavenly court? So on that, the Ohr Hachaim comes up with a interesting understanding, and that is, again, I gave you one explanation earlier, and that had to do with the fact that Yosef was a roidef, he's going to cause them to die. The Ohr Hachaim comes up with a little different interpretation, that what the brothers saw Yosef doing was that he's this tattletale. He is what's called an eid zoimim. He is called a false witness, because he's making up stories to the father that they're eating meat from live animals, and they're not slaughtering the animal first. They're not killing the animal until it dies. They're eating the meat before the animal is fully dead, and that's considered aver min hachai. It's a prohibition. It's subject to the death penalty in the laws of Bnei Noach. And that's what Joseph claimed about the brothers. Of course, the commentaries try to figure out, what exactly did the brother, do you really think the brothers did that sin? Aver min hachai, would they have done that? He also claimed that they were having relations that are inappropriate, erva, like inappropriate relations with relatives. It doesn't say what they did, but that's also like very surprising to think that the brothers, these are the righteous, the leaders of the tribes, but Joseph was tattletaling to his father about these things. So the brothers claim that Joseph is called an eid zoimim. He's a false witness. Now, false witness is a very serious, it's a terrible sin to give false testimony. And that's what they saw Joseph doing. Now, in one of the types of false witnesses, there's a punishment where you do to the witness what the witness wanted to do to the defendant, called kasher zama. Now, the Ohr Hachaim understands that in the heavenly court, being that everything is, I guess, measure for measure, that all types of false witnesses have that type of punishment. Again, in the heavenly court, in the earthly court, there is such an idea, such a concept, but it doesn't apply to all cases of false witnesses. It's a type of edom zoimimin versus edus mocheshes. There's a type of false witnesses that it applies to, type of false witnesses that it doesn't apply to. That's in the earthly court, and when the earthly court gives judgments, the human court. But in the heavenly court, the way the Ohr Hachaim understands it, and I believe it's connected to the fact that everything is measure for measure, the Ohr Hachaim says that in the heavenly court, anyone that gives false testimony about someone else and they want to cause harm to this other person, they are going to be deserving of getting that harm done to them. So the brothers, this is the Ohr Hachaim's interpretation. I'm sharing with you now, you have another interpretation of what the brothers, why they felt that they were allowed. Again, these are brothers. I don't know what type of experience they had in judging murder cases of capital punishment, but this was a case that was applicable to them, and they judged that Joseph was deserving in the heavenly court. He's deserving of getting the death penalty. Why? Because Joseph was giving testimony that the brothers deserve death. So therefore, seemingly, he's deserving of death, at least in the heavens, at least by Hashem's eye, in Hashem's eyes, he's deserving of death. So therefore, the brothers felt that they have the right to kill Joseph. Why? Because number one, in the earthly court, they're not doing anything that's punishable by death. Because why? Because they're more than one person, more than one individual. So that's earthly matters they've covered. In heavenly matters, Joseph actually deserves death. So they're not killing an innocent person. They're killing someone who's deserving of the death penalty. So between heavens and earth, they're covering all grounds. Between earthly court and heavenly court, they're not killing someone just with cold blood. They're actually killing someone who's deserving of death. And so that's their interpretation, that's their understanding of why they should be able to do this. Now, the Ohr Hachaim acknowledges, and he says that, yes, I understand that that Joseph is not necessarily falls under the category of getting that type of getting that type of punishment, because Joseph is not necessarily falls under the rules of Jewish law of Zoimimin. It's not prohibited for Bnei Noach. It's not prohibited for the sons of Noach. It's not punishable by death. It's not one of the 7 Noachide laws. So nevertheless, the Ohr Hachaim says, right, that's true. But their issue is only to cover the heavenly matter of how Hashem is going to look at what they did. And by Hashem looking at what they did, by Hashem seeing what they did, that he wants to cause them to die. And therefore, in Hashem's eyes, they feel that he deserves this this death penalty. So that's that's the Ohr Hachaim's understanding. Now, the Ohr Hachaim mentions that if you think about it, why did they say now let's go kill him? So he says maybe deep down they had in mind, now we'll kill him, and afterwards we'll do tshuva. The ata means, the Ohr Hachaim brings a source that Medrash says the ata means tshuva. So the Ohr Hachaim says that in their words they were hinting that they're going to do tshuva in the end, and nothing would stand before tshuva. So they had in mind, like, we'll also do tshuva at the end, but they seem to want to cover themselves and they felt that if they, in the heavenly court, they felt that Joseph is deserving of death. He's causing them to die. He's causing them to die because he's giving false testimony, and there it's going to be, these are prohibitions. Eating meat from a live animal as a death penalty, or had sinning in matters of erva, having incest is the death penalty, and so therefore they felt that they were justified in killing him. Okay. Now the Ohr Hachaim continues in the next piece, and the Ohr Hachaim says that we will. The verse says, "And we will see what's going to happen to his dreams." So what they mean by that is that, number one, they are trying to prove that his dreams are not true. In other words, he's making up this story. I had a dream that you all bow down. Your sheaves bowed down to my sheaf. That the stars and the sun and the moon bowed down to me. He's making up that dream. It's not true. They want to prove that it's not true, and they're going to kill him. And by showing that, when they kill him, we'll see that it's not true. Or they said, not that it's not true that you had this dream. The other option is that maybe you've been thinking about this type of stuff by day. You're constantly thinking. You're so arrogant, Joseph, and you think of yourself being king and that you're better than everyone else. So that's why you dream about such things. And now we're going to prove, when we kill you, this will be a sign. In other words, the verse means, and we will see what's going to happen to his dreams, means this will be a proof to us. If you die, it means that for sure your dreams were not true, or they at least were not real dreams. They're not dreams of true dreams. A true dream is when it comes with purity. A not true dream is when you're thinking about it all day long, and then you dream about it at night. That's not a real dream. You're dreaming about it because that's what's on your mind. So this is their way of trying to prove that his dream is not true, is the fact that if he dies, it means it wasn't meant. It means you weren't meant to be a leader. Now, what happens? So Reuven hears this idea of killing him and then throwing him into the pit. And Reuven here, he says, he saves him from their hand, and he says, no, we're not going to kill him. So the Ohr Hachaim here says a person is a Baal Bechira. A person has free will. And he could kill someone who's not deserving of death. Animals can't. They will not be able to kill someone unless the person deserves death. And that's what it means. He saved Joseph from their hands, meaning from the hands of a human who has free will. And he says, Loina kenu nafesh. He says, we should kill him. So he saved Yosef miyadam. He saved him from their hand, means from the hands of a human, from the hands of a person who has bechira. And with this, he explained to the brothers that you want to prove if his dreams are real, you're not going to be able to prove it by killing. You have to understand the flow here. Reuven has this whole new philosophy that he's sharing with them, something that's debated among the great Jewish philosophers of how we see bechira, free will, and how we see Hashem's divine providence and the heavenly judgment. How do we reconcile these two things? And here the Ohr Hachaim tells us that Reuven saves Yosef from their hands. And with those two words, the Ohr Hachaim says what this means is that a human being has the ability to kill someone who doesn't deserve death. Why? Because you have free will. Hashem gave you free will. you have the ability to kill someone who doesn't deserve death. And Reuven is basically telling the brothers, you want to prove that his dreams are not real? It's not going to be a proof. You'll kill him and he'll die. And you're going to try to say, well, you see that those dreams weren't true. Reuven says, no, the dreams were true. He was meant to rule. He was meant to be a king over us. We were meant to bow down to him. But Hashem gave everyone free will. And us fools, us brothers, we went and killed him. We have free will, and we took matters in our own hands. And Hashem gave us free will, especially where we're Yidden. We have, as much free will as there is, even to Goyim, even any human. But the Yidden especially have an element of free will. And so we are the ones who actually killed him, even though he was meant maybe to fulfill those dreams. Maybe those dreams were real. So we're not going to prove it by killing him because we are humans. He says, you know what we need to do? And this is where Reuven clarifies what needs to be done is that loina kenu nafesh, we're not going to kill him. Rather, we could cause for him to die. Don't spill any blood. And what Reuven really wanted, ultimately his goal is to actually bring him back to his father. But he didn't tell that to his brothers. That's his hidden, his ulterior motive that's not revealed. That's what he's planning on doing. He wants to come back afterwards and he'll bring him to his father. But what is he telling the brothers? He's telling the brothers that he's that we should throw him in the pit. Throw him into the pit. And by doing that, we're going to subject Joseph to be killed by the animal kingdom, not by a human. The human has free will. The animals don't have free will. So he says, we're not going to prove anything if we do it. Let's let the animals, the chayos rois, they will not be able to kill someone unless the man deserves death in heavenly court. And so this is a very well-known Ohr Hachaim. It's a very big question if this is the actual understanding of how we're supposed to see divine providence versus Bechira, how we're supposed to see Hashem's involvement. But this is the simple understanding of the Ohr Hachaim, is that a person does have free will. He could kill someone who doesn't deserve to die, and animals can't. And therefore, if you want to know if someone really deserved to die, then whether through punishment or whether from other reasons of heaven, but they deserve death, let the animals. If the animal kills the person, then it's from heaven. If a person kills the person, it could be that the person didn't deserve it. Maybe the person didn't deserve it. So that's the Ohr Hachaim's understanding. Now, the commentary's not really satisfied with that, because the common understanding in Judaism is that even though you have free will, your free will is very, very nice up to a point. You can't end up killing someone who doesn't deserve to die, but you can kill someone who deserves to die, not necessarily through you. You have the right to kill. That's where free will kicks in. Free will works when you do something that you chose to do against someone who deserves it to happen to. That's the norm. That's the common understanding in Yiddishkeit of free will. This Ohr Hachaim is different than the common understanding, and of course it's discussed at length. This Ohr Hachaim is brought down. There's discussion if maybe you have to translate the Ohr Hachaim a little differently to mean that a person has more free will. In other words, you need to have more merit. Another way of understanding the Ohr Hachaim is not that a person has total free will, could kill someone who doesn't deserve death, but that you have the ability to cause someone to die if they don't have enough merits. Meaning that they deserve, they will, you can cause someone to die. They need extra merits to counteract a human being's free will. An animal's actions, you need less merit. So, for example, if a person wants to kill Yankel, there's a Yankel who a person wants to kill, and he holds a gun up to him, and he's about to kill him. If Yankel has enough merits, it won't work. Somehow that gun will get jammed. It's just not going to work. He needs a lot of merits. Let's say he needs 100 mitzvahs to save his life. He needs 100 points. An animal is chasing Yankel. A lion is chasing Yankel. And for that, Yankel will be saved even with 25 merits, 25 mitzvahs. Why? Because a person has an element of free will, and therefore Hashem's saving the person from saving the Joseph or Yankel, saving him from a human trying to kill him is a bigger miracle than saving Yankel from an animal that's trying to kill him. And therefore you need more merit to make such a bigger miracle. Because a person has free will, therefore you need more merit in order to save yourself. So I'm sharing with you, I understand it's a deep concept about how free will works, and I'm sharing with you that the common understanding in Judaism is that you can't hurt someone unless they deserve to be hurt. And how to fit that and reconcile that with this Ohr Hachaim, one way of reconciling that understanding with this Ohr Hachaim is that the Ohr Hachaim really means that if a person is trying to kill someone, the subject would need more merit than if an animal was trying to kill him. That's a way of understanding it. But in any event, what comes out from here is that Reuven's claim to the brothers was, we shouldn't be physically involved in killing Joseph. Let the animals do it. They'll prove if Joseph really deserves death or not. Because if Joseph gets killed by the animal, then we'll know that he actually deserved, it was actually meant, and he wasn't meant to be a king. And that means that the dreams were not really real. That's the way the Ohr Hachaim is understanding this story. Now, Reuven himself actually didn't expect Joseph to get killed in the pit. Why not? Because Reuven said, well, I believe he's going to have merit. And his number one, Joseph himself has some merit. Number two, his father is Jacob. Number three, his grandfather is Isaac. Number four, his great-grandfather is Abraham. And so he's got enough merit that he's not going to end up getting hurt by these animals. And therefore, Reuben was actually confident that he's going to be able to come back and save him. So that was in the back of his mind. That's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, that didn't play out that way. We'll soon see. Now, when they tear off his garment, the verse is an interesting verse. It says they took off Vayafshitu. They removed, they stripped him from his kasainas, kusantoi, his garment, and then it says the kasainas passive, the fine woolen garment that was on him. Now Rashi actually understands it to mean two separate things. I mean, I guess it makes sense. It says es kusantoi, es kasainas hapasim asher olav. It says his garment and his es kasainas hapasim. In other words, but it's not a translation. Rashi learns it as two separate things, even though it doesn't have a v'es kusantoi, kasainas hapasim asher olav. Again, let me read for you the verse. The verse says, they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the fine woolen tunic that was on him. So I guess
why would that be two?
So the thing is,
the one I think is modifying the first.
Modifying the first. So you theoretically that could be the meaning. The only problem with that is that it says es kusantoi es kasainas hapasim asher olav. It has an extra word es there, which I think that's maybe why Rashi also learns it this way, that it's two separate things. There's the chaluk, which basically means like the shirt, and there's the Ksainas Pasim, the extra jacket, the extra garment, fine woolen garment. So Rashi learns that it's two separate things. Again, there's on the one hand, it doesn't have the vav, v'es Ksainas Pasim, but Rashi learns it this way. The Ohr Hachaim also seems to understand it this way. The only problem the Ohr Hachaim has is that when you take off someone's garments, which garment do you take off first? The bottom one or the top one? Now, if it said it the opposite order, this would be perfect. He took off the fine woolen garment, which sounded like a robe that went above everything. It sounded like a nice fancy robe, and then he took off, after he took the fine robe, he took off the kasainas, the shirt. But the pasuk says it the opposite order. He first took off the kasainas, which is this the shirt, and then he took off the fine robe. How do you do that?
Rabbi,
So
doesn't that prove that Rashi's reading is not correct?
Well, that's a good question on Rashi, but the Ohr Hachaim has an answer, and the answer the Ohr Hachaim has is not to argue on Rashi. He actually seems to agree, and he says that they actually didn't want to take off the kusantoi, the shirt. Rather, they just wanted to take off the outer garment. But when they took off the outer garment, they were so angry that they didn't carefully remove the outer garment and keep on the inner garment. They just grabbed whatever their hands grabbed, and with the anger and with hatred, and they ended up taking off both. And that's what the pasuk says by Yafshitu, that there was nothing left on his body. He was like, somewhat naked. I don't know, maybe not fully, but to some extent, he was. They removed his clothing. They removed both. It came at one shot. They did it with es kasainas apasim. The way he's translating is that es is almost like with im kasainas apasim. So they took it off. Okay. All out of the anger that they had. And now what happens? Then other caravan comes by, and they decide to sell. Yehuda tells the brothers, "What do we gain by killing him and covering up his blood? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites, and we won't have any involvement." And interesting, the next verse then talks about the Midianites. Anashim Midyanim Seichorim. Then there's Midianites that come. They pass by, merchants. They pull Yosef out of the pit, and they sell him to the Ishmaelites. So what's the Midianites doing here with the Ishmaelites? The Ishmaelites are first. Then the verse says the Midyanim Seichorim, these merchant Midianites, and then it says they sell them to the Ishmaelites. They sell them to the Ishmaelites. And the problem is that then if you look afterwards, what happens? It says, then in a few psukim later, it mentions that who sells him to the butcher? The Midianites. So the Chaim is like, which one is it? Did the Ishmaelites and the Ishmaelites buy him, or did the Midianites buy him? In other words, even after it mentions the Midianites, it then says that they sold him to the Ishmaelites. So it says Ishmaelites first, then it says Midianites, then it says they sold him to the Ishmaelites, and then it says the Midianites sold him to Paro. So the way the Ohr Hachaim learns it is that he really was sold to the Ishmaelites. The problem is the Ishmaelites did not have a business advisor. The Midianites were Seicharim. They knew value. They knew what something's worth. They knew how to invest. They were business financial advisors. And they were the ones who helped the Ishmaelites decide if this is how much to buy them for. in how much they could sell him for. And they imagined that they were able to estimate if it was worth it. And of course they get some type of a commission. And so the Midianites, it's called Midyanim Seicharim. It doesn't say that about the Ishmaelites. The Midianites, it says Seicharim. So this is the way this is the way the Ohr Hachaim understands it, that the Ishmaelites were never going to buy Yosef. Why? They don't know value. They don't know what it's worth. A slave, they're selling perfume. They're not selling people. They're not in this business. Maybe if they were in the business, fine, but they're not in the business of selling people. Just to buy someone as a slave was not what they're familiar with. So they're not going to be able to. Therefore, Hashem arranged that the Midianites that are merchants, that they sell all different types of merchandise, and they buy things low and they sell things high, and they know how to do business. And so they, the only thing is, the Midianites, they don't have money. They're just the business advisors. They're financial advisors. They don't have money. It's the other people who have the money who are going to buy it. So they're not the seicher, the merchant is not the Baal Hakis. They're not the people with the money. So therefore, the person with the money is going to buy it based on their advice, and that's how the Ohr Hachaim understands the simple understanding here of the story, that they came by and helped them, and they finalized the sale. And that's what it says, that that the first, before they bought it, the Seicherim, the Midyanim Seicherim came and they sold, and through them they sold Yosef to the Ishmaelites, because without the Midianite merchants, advisors, they would not have been able to sell to the Ishmaelites. Now, the Midianites get a portion of the profit. So they bought him for the 20 shekel, and it doesn't say how much they sold him for, but they obviously sold him at a nice high price to the butcher of the king in Egypt. So so the Midianites are going to get a portion, and of course the Ishmaelites get a portion as well. And they're the ones who paid the 20 kesef. So therefore it says the Medanim Meichrim Meiseil Mitzrayim, the Medanim, the Midianites, they sold Yosef to Egypt because they were getting a portion of this sale, and they know what his value is. They knew how much they could ask for, but physically the Ishmaelites had Yosef, and they were the ones who were holding the merchandise, which is Joseph. And so it says Vayiknehu Potifar. It says Potifar bought him miyad hayishmaelu. This is in a few chapters, which is, in other words, Ohr Hachaim is reconciling the contradiction. In a few verses, it says the Medanim sold him to Potifar. In a few chapters, it says Vayiknehu Potifar miyad hayishmaelu, bought him from the hand of the Ishmaelites. So the answer is, yeah, because they were the ones who were actually they were the ones who brought him to Egypt and were holding him, and Potifar would have needed to buy him from them. Yosef was in their hands, but they needed the Midianites to know the value and so on, and to make them understand. He understood the business part of it. So they needed to agree to the deal. So that's why it says the Medanim Mayich Machru, they sold him, and but he was taken from the hands of the Ishmaelites. The Medanim made the deal, but the Ishmaelites. So it reconciles the actual wording that it says that Medanim, that the Midianites sold him to where is this pasuk? In verse 36, that the Midianites are the ones who sold him to Egypt, to Potifar, the Sar HaTabachim, the chief butcher. So that's the understanding here of reconciling the contradictions with the Midianites and the Ishmaelites. Now, the Ohr
So
Hachaim does mention. I'm sorry, Isaac. You want to say
I
something?
said you have the marketing department, and then you have the inventory. Okay.
Yeah, let's try now. No, the sound, no sound.
Rabbi,
Yeah,
can you hear
just one
me?
sec. Just 1 second, Panina. Just we're trying to get Isaac. We can't hear you, Isaac. Something went wrong with the mic now. Oh boy. Before it was very unclear. Now I can't hear you at all. Okay, Panina, why don't you go first? Maybe.
Sorry,
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
1 second. I think Isaac we
I
can hear.
said you have the marketing department, and then you have the inventory control. The
Right.
Ishmaelim was schlepping all the inventory, whatever these guys were buying and selling, they were controlling it. The
Right.
sheep and the animals and a few slaves. So it's just interesting. You keep thinking of them as different people, so therefore worlds apart. These guys were doing business together. That's all.
Right.
That
Right.
my question sort of maybe relates to that in a little bit way, because I thought that the Midianites were a tribe of Ishmaelim. Aren't they related to the Ishmaelim?
Well, like what do you what like I mean, in what to what extent did they live near each other? I mean,
I thought that they were, actually biological relatives in some form. That they were another tribe of Ishmaelim. The
right.
Ishmaelim being a larger group, and the Midianites being a subgroup of the Ishmaelim.
Listen, ultimately everyone's related, right?
No, I know,
But
but I'm specifically
but
relating to them in
but
that way.
they obviously specialize in different things. It's like these are more, blue collar type of people. These are more white collar type of people. Different groups. The Italians have their way of doing, their type of businesses that they get involved in, and other groups have their businesses. It's not that it has to be that way, but that's the way it works. You know. Yes, Mordechai.
These guys were all
Yeah.
mercantile.
Yeah, isn't there an opinion that it was three groups, the Midyanim, the Ishmaelim, and the Midyanim?
Oh, interesting. Because you're right. It does. It does. One place it says anashim midyanim, and then afterwards it says midanim. That's interesting. I'm not familiar with is that a medrash that you're quoting, or one of the commentaries on the Chumash that makes that difference? In other words, sometimes you just assume that the pasuk leaves out a letter, But of course, it sounds like a good shot. Like there might have been three different groups. It still would be surprising that learning it that way. Although that would explain why it's missing a yud later, it wouldn't answer the main issue here. The main issue here is that why are we talking about Midyanim if the Midyanim did nothing? That's the main question. Again, before the sale took place, it already mentions the Midyanim. And then who did the sale take place with? Took place with the Ishmaelim. But the Ishmaelim they saw in the first place. They saw the Ishmaelim. In other words, the Ishmaelim were the first ones that passed by. So why would it mention the Midyanim afterwards and not talk about selling it to the Midyanim? Instead, it seems like they sold it to the Ishmaelim. And then the Midyanim, that is an interesting shot. Again, Rashi doesn't seem to pick up on it. Lamed Vav, Rashi doesn't say anything where it says the Midyanim. So my understanding is the Ohr Hachaim, the way he words it doesn't seem like he's learning this way either, because he seems to consider the Midyanim and the Midyanim to be the same. Maybe the Rashbam. I think maybe the Rashbam might be bringing that out. I have to take a look at a Chumash Mekreis Gedolos. But that's an interesting shot, Mordechai. Thank you for mentioning that. Now, there is another pshat. Rashi does say that there were many sales that went on. That it was sold. He was sold many times. The Ohr Hachaim explains like the way the verses run. In other words, according to Rashi, it's just mentioning these different things because it's basically there was a number of different sales that took place. The only thing is that it does seem to say that he bought him from the Yishmaelite later. The Midyanim sold. So the pasuk does seem to leave out. The pasuk does seem to leave out. If he was sold many times, it does seem to leave out the names of the other people, the other groups that he was sold to. So the Ohr Hachaim mentions that medrash, but he says, according to the pshat, this is the meaning of Midyanim and Danim. Okay, I'm sorry, Midyanim and Yishmaelim. Excuse me. Okay, so now after this Ohr Hachaim, the next Ohr Hachaim says that they sold Yosef, and the Ohr Hachaim says, you know why they now were agreeable to sell him? Because they already embarrassed him. They took off his cloak, and he's now naked, and they threw him into the pit. By doing this, their anger has subsided somewhat, and now they seem to be ready to sell him. Now, initially they wanted to kill him. They're throwing him into the pit. Why? Because ultimately they think he's going to die in the pit. In fact, how do we know that they thought? Reuven didn't think he was going to die in the pit, but he didn't tell that to them. He told them, we're not going to kill him. Let the animals kill him in the pit. So they thought he's going to die. In fact, Yehuda is convinced that he's going to die in the pit. Why? How do we know that? Because Yehuda says, why should we have him die in the pit? He's our brother. How could we kill him? Let's sell him to the Ishmaelites. So Yehuda thought he is going to die in the pit from the animals, right? So Yehuda wants to sell him. So why is he willing to do that? I thought they want him to die. I thought they're not interested in doing anything but killing him, to the extent that they're very nervous of letting him live because maybe he's going to continue bothering them and doing what he did with his tattletaling and all that stuff. So why are they going to be willing to sell him now? So according to the Ohr Hachaim, their anger has subsided. They've taken out some of their anger by their acts of taking off his clothing, his coat, and his shirt, and they threw him into the pit. They basically are willing now to maybe to sell it. And he says also from the fact that he's now, if they're going to sell him as a slave, chances are he's not going to be freed. He'll stay a slave because no slave, they're not going to give him away for free. They're going to end up selling him to another place. If they don't want to keep him, they'll sell him to someone else. So they figure he's a slave. He'll never really have any problems. We're not going to have any problems, and he's not going to rise to greatness, which is what they were concerned about, that his dreams are going to come true. He's never going to rise to greatness. We're never going to have to bow down to him. So that was their. So this explains why they're willing to sell him now. And initially they needed to they were convinced they need to kill him. Now Reuven comes back to find him and to bring him back and save him from the pit. And he's going to bring him to his father. Now, Reuven is shocked. He's not there. Now, Rashi tells us Reuven had left for a little while. He was either doing tshuva or he was serving his father. Anyway, he came back. Doesn't say when, but his day of serving his father happened. So he went there. He came back, and Joseph is no longer in the pit. So he says, Ba'ani, anani, but how am I going to face? How am I going to go home? So the question is, what was he initially doing? He initially was throwing Yosef into the pit. And he told his brothers that, why should we physically kill him? Let's throw him in the pit. and he'll die there from the animals. So Reuven's claim initially was, we're going to kill him. They're just not going to do it physically. We're going to let him get killed by the animals. And we'll see if he deserves death. And he probably, he basically convinced his brothers that, he'll get killed. And that will be, a sufficient, we don't have to do it ourselves. Let the animals kill him and we'll never become king. We're not going to have to ever bow down to him. That'll be the end of our problems. Now, that was his plan. He comes back and Joseph's not there. Okay. So much worse. He was going to be dead. What was it going to, why was it going to be better if he was dead than now he's not even there? So you're not going to have any problems with him. Why are you worried? What were you going to do if he got killed? So that's what the Ohr Hachaim tries to deal with. Now, you have to keep in mind that there's two parts to this, dealing with this. One is Reuven's plan, Reuven's initial plan, and actually all along, this was his plan, was he's bringing Joseph back alive to his father. He didn't expect him to die, but we're not dealing with what Reuven really had in mind. We're dealing with what Reuven was selling to his brothers. Reuven was making up a plan for his brother, how he's selling this spiel. We're going to throw him in the pit. He'll die in the pit. No problem. According to his explaining to the way he was presenting it to his brothers, along those lines, what is he telling his brothers? How am I going to come back to my father? And how were you going to come back to your father if he died the way you told us, that he's going to be eaten up in the pit? Again, Reuven himself it's not surprising that he's worried. He initially was planning on bringing his brother back, and now he's not going to be able to bring him back. But according to the way he explained it to his brothers and convinced them, we throw him in the pit, and now there's no longer in the pit. So what's the difference? What were you thinking of doing? So the Hachaim says, Reuven was thinking that if Joseph would have been killed in the pit by the animals, he would come to his father with a portion of his body and bring it back to his father and say, he died. An animal must have eaten him up, and you see, the animal killed it. Maybe it will be complete, but he'll be, have a scorpion bite, and I'll have a snake bite, and he'll have died. So whatever it is, he'll be able to return something. But now his father's going to say, where is he? Where's your brother? Go look for him. Don't come back home until you find him. So he's now going to have to look his whole life from one end of the world to the other. That's what Reuven is nervous about. That's when the brothers said, no, you don't have to worry. We're going to slaughter a goat. And if we slaughter the goat, then we could also come up with the same line. We don't have a body to return, but at least we'll have the blood of the goat blood, which looks like human blood, and we have his special garment called the Ksainis Pasim that's soaked in the blood. We'll be able to say the same thing, that he must have been eaten up by a wild animal, and we're not going to have to. Jacob is not going to send us to go find his body. A wild animal will have eaten him up. And even if there are anything left, bones left, the Ohr Hachaim says that that the father said Toraf Yosef, he was torn apart. A wild animal ate him, and there's no reason to go look for the bones, because the animal ate him. The animal also took the bones to its lair and would not. Jacob did not expect the brothers to search for him. So this is the story, according to the Ohr Hachaim, gives us like a little understanding of where the brothers, why they claimed that he deserved death, and what each of their actions were, the different groups of the caravans that they sold him to, and the claim of Reuven's claim of trying to either actually save him, but what he told his brothers. And so this is a sort of like a pathway of understanding the story according to the Ohr Hachaim HaKadosh. Okay, sei gesund, everyone. If I don't see you tomorrow, have